Hello everyone. Welcome back to Daily English Podcast. Thank you so much for choosing to spend your time here with me today. Maybe you are walking outside right now. Maybe you are driving your car, watching the road stretch out in front of you. You might be working, studying, doing some housework, or just lying in bed, trying to relax and fall asleep. Wherever you are, and whatever you are doing, I am glad you are here. Can I ask you something? Do you ever feel like everyone else has life figured out, except you? Maybe your friends already know exactly what they want. Maybe someone your age is buying a house, starting a business, getting married, building a career. Meanwhile, you're just trying to figure out what tomorrow looks like. If that's how you feel, you're not alone. Before we begin, I'd love to hear from you. What's the biggest uncertainty in your life right now? Leave your answer in the comments. I genuinely enjoy reading your stories because many of them inspire future episodes. Imagine it is 2 o'clock in the morning. The house is completely quiet. Outside your window, maybe there is a soft rain falling, or maybe just the distant sound of a car driving down an empty street. You are lying in bed. You are tired. Your body is exhausted. But your eyes are wide open, staring at the ceiling. Your mind is racing. It is playing a movie of your life, but it is not a happy movie. It is a movie filled with questions. Am I doing the right thing? Why am I not further ahead by now? What if I chose the wrong career? What if I never find the right person? What if it's too late to change? You pick up your phone. The bright light hurts your eyes for a second. You open a social media app. And there it is. A picture of your old classmate from high school. They are standing in front of a beautiful new house, holding a key, smiling. You scroll down. A post from a coworker. They just got a massive promotion. You scroll again. Someone younger than you is traveling the world, living a life that looks completely perfect. You put the phone down. And in the dark, a heavy feeling settles right in the middle of your chest. It is a feeling of being left behind. It is the feeling that there is a secret rulebook to life, and somehow, everybody else received a copy of this book, except you. Have you ever felt that heavy feeling? I want to tell you a story about a woman named Maya. Maya is 29 years old. By most normal standards, Maya is doing okay. She has an apartment. She has a job in an office. She pays her bills on time. But every Sunday evening, Maya sits on her sofa and feels a deep sense of panic. Last week, Maya received a wedding invitation in the mail. It was from her younger sister. Maya is happy for her sister, of course. She loves her. But as she looked at the beautiful white envelope, a voice in her head whispered, "Your sister is younger than you. She has a house. She has a partner. She has a 5-year plan. What do you have, Maya?" Maya went to work the next day. She sat at her computer, looking at spreadsheets. She looked around the office. Her boss seemed so confident. Her colleagues were discussing their investments and their weekend plans. Maya felt like an actor in a play, wearing a costume, hoping nobody would notice that she had forgotten her lines. She felt like an imposter. She felt like a child pretending to be an adult. She often wonders, when does the feeling of certainty arrive? When do I finally wake up and feel like an adult who knows what they are doing? We will come back to Maya in a little while. Because what Maya is experiencing is not strange. In fact, it is one of the most common psychological experiences in the modern world. But nobody talks about it. We all walk around wearing masks of certainty. We say things like, "My 5-year plan is on track." We say, "I am focusing on my career goals." We say, "Everything is going great." But behind the masks, we are all just trying to navigate through a thick fog. Why do we do this? Why do we put so much pressure on ourselves to have a perfect, straight path? To understand this, we need to look at how our society created something I call the timeline. Think about it. From the moment you are born, society gives you a timeline. It goes like this. Go to school. Get good grades. At 18, choose the career you will do for the rest of your life. Go to university or get a good job. By 25, you should be moving up in your career. By 27, you should find your life partner. By 30, you should buy a house and have children. By 40, you should be a manager or highly successful. By 65, you retire. It sounds so simple, doesn't it? It sounds like a train schedule. But human lives are not trains. This timeline was actually invented during the Industrial Revolution. A couple of 100 years ago, society needed people to work in factories. They needed predictable workers who did predictable things at predictable ages. But we don't live in that world anymore. The world today is completely unpredictable. It changes every single month. Technology changes. The economy changes. Yet, we still judge our self-worth based on a timeline invented by factory owners 200 years ago. When you miss a stop on this train schedule, maybe you turn 30 and you are still single, or you turn 40 and you want to change your career completely, society makes you feel like you are broken. You feel like you have failed. But what if you aren't broken? What if the timeline is broken? Let's look at this from a psychological perspective. Our human brains are fascinating. They are the most complex machines in the universe. But they have a major design flaw when it comes to modern life. Your brain evolved thousands of years ago. Back then, uncertainty meant danger. If our ancestors heard a noise in the tall grass, they needed to know exactly what it was. Was it the wind? Or was it a hungry tiger? If they were uncertain, they might die. So, the brain developed a very strong alarm system. It is called the amygdala. It is a tiny, almond-shaped part of your brain. The amygdala hates uncertainty. It hates not knowing what is going to happen tomorrow. When you don't have a clear plan for your future, your amygdala starts ringing the alarm bell. It releases stress hormones like cortisol. It makes your heart beat faster. It makes you feel anxious. Your brain treats an uncertain career path the same way it treats a hungry tiger. It screams, danger. You need a plan. Figure it out right now. But here is the truth, the modern world is completely safe from tigers, but it is entirely made of uncertainty. You cannot predict the future. You cannot control everything. So, our brains are constantly in a state of low-level panic. We try to fix this panic by forcing ourselves to make plans. We tell ourselves, if I just figure out my whole life, I will finally feel safe. But I want to challenge that belief right now. What if certainty isn't actually the goal? What if certainty is an illusion? Let me tell you about a man named David. David did everything the timeline told him to do. He was the golden child. He got the top grades. He went to the best university. He chose a career in finance because it was safe and respectable. By the time he was 32, David had the corner office. He had the expensive suit. He had the luxury apartment in the city center. He had absolute certainty. But every morning, as David rode the elevator up to the 40th floor of his office building, he felt a crushing weight on his shoulders. He would look out the glass window at the city below and think, is this it? Is this the rest of my life? David had climbed all the way to the top of the ladder. But when he got there, he realized the ladder was leaning against the wrong wall. He had figured out a life. But he hadn't figured out his life. One day, David was sitting in a meeting. People were arguing about tiny percentages and financial reports. Suddenly, David couldn't breathe. He had to leave the room. He walked out of the building, sat on a park bench, and cried. He realized he didn't care about finance. He had only chosen it because it looked good on the timeline. David had to do something terrifying. He had to give up his certainty. He quit his job. For the first time in his life, he had no plan. He didn't know what he was going to do the next morning. His friends thought he was crazy. "You have everything figured out," they said. "Why are you throwing it away?" But David felt something he hadn't felt in 15 years. He felt light. It took David 3 years of struggling, trying different things, failing, and exploring before he found what he actually loved: teaching history at a small high school. He makes a fraction of the money he used to make. He drives an old, beat-up car. But when he wakes up in the morning, the heavy weight is gone. David's story teaches us something very important. Having your life figured out on paper means nothing if it doesn't feel right in your heart. Sometimes, the people who seem to have it all figured out are actually the most trapped. They are trapped in a life they built for someone else's approval. Do you sometimes feel this way? Do you ever feel like you are following a script that someone else wrote for you? Take a moment. Think about the expectations you are carrying right now. Who gave them to you? Did you choose them? Or did society, your parents, or social media hand them to you when you weren't looking? Let's talk about social media for a moment, because we cannot talk about feeling lost without talking about the digital mirror we hold up to our faces every single day. There is a psychological concept known as upward social comparison. As humans, we naturally compare ourselves to others. It is how we understand our place in the tribe. But for thousands of years, you only compared yourself to the 50 or 100 people in your village. If you were a decent farmer, you felt good about yourself. Today, you do not compare yourself to your village. You compare yourself to 8 billion people on the internet. And you are not comparing yourself to their real lives. You are comparing your messy behind-the-scenes reality to their perfectly edited highlight reel. Think about a movie. When you go to the cinema, you see the beautiful final product. You see the hero looking perfect. You hear the dramatic music. You don't see the hundreds of takes where the actor forgot their lines. You don't see the messy cables on the floor. You don't see the director yelling. You only see the magic. When you look at someone's life online, you are watching their movie. Let's look at a story about this. Elena is 24. She is a travel photographer. If you look at her social media, her life is a dream. Today she is in Bali, drinking from a coconut. Tomorrow she is in Paris, standing under the Eiffel Tower. Her comments are filled with people saying, "I wish I had your life. You have it all figured out. You are living the dream." But let me tell you what the camera did not capture in Bali. The camera didn't capture Elena sitting on the floor of her cheap hostel room, crying because she felt incredibly lonely. It didn't capture the panic attack she had because she didn't have enough money to pay her credit card bill next month. It didn't capture her staring at the ceiling, wondering if she should just go home and get a normal job. To the world, Elena has life figured out. To Elena, she is just trying to survive the week. We compare our internal struggles to everyone else's external success. It is a game you cannot possibly win. Every time you feel behind, remember Elena on the hostel floor. The people you are jealous of are often dealing with uncertainties that you know nothing about. There is another reason why we feel so lost today. It is a psychological phenomenon called decision fatigue. I want you to imagine walking into a massive supermarket. You want to buy some jam for your breakfast. You walk to the jam aisle. But instead of finding 3 types of jam, strawberry, grape, and orange, you find 300 types of jam. There is organic raspberry, spicy mango, low-sugar blackberry, imported French apricot. What happens? Psychologists actually did this experiment. They found that when people are presented with too many choices, they freeze. They become paralyzed. They are so terrified of making the wrong choice that they make no choice at all. They walk out of the store without buying anything. This is not just about jam. This is about your life. 50 years ago, people didn't have many choices. If your father was a carpenter, you became a carpenter. If you lived in a certain town, you married someone from that town. The path was narrow, but it was clear. Today, you can be anything. You can live anywhere. You can study thousands of different subjects. You can apply for jobs on the other side of the planet with a single click. This freedom is beautiful. It is a privilege. But it is also incredibly overwhelming. When you can be anything, how do you choose just one thing? We stare at the giant supermarket aisle of life, looking at all the possible careers, all the possible cities we could live in, all the possible ways to live. And we freeze. We think, if I choose to be an engineer, I am closing the door on being an artist. If I move to London, I am giving up on New York. We want to make the perfect choice. We want the absolute guarantee that we are making the right decision. But life does not come with guarantees. Listen to me very carefully. Are you listening? There is no perfectly right choice. There are only choices, and what you build after you make them. Let me share the story of Marcus. Marcus was 35 years old. He had been working in marketing for 10 years. He was good at it, but he didn't love it. Secretly, Marcus loved baking bread. He spent his weekends covered in flour, experimenting with sourdough, listening to the quiet crackle of the crust as it came out of the oven. Marcus wanted to open a small bakery. But he was paralyzed. He spent 2 whole years making spreadsheets. He analyzed the market. He looked at the failure rates of small businesses. He worried about his age. He told himself, I am 35. I should have figured this out in my 20s. It's too late to start over. What if I fail? What if everyone laughs at me? Marcus was waiting for absolute certainty before he took a step. He was waiting for the fear to go away. But fear doesn't go away until you take action. One day, Marcus was talking to an older friend, an elderly man named Thomas who used to be a pilot. Marcus poured out his heart. He explained all his fears, all his calculations, all his reasons for staying in his safe job. Thomas smiled gently and said, Marcus, you are trying to navigate a ship by sitting in the harbor and studying the stars. You can study the stars forever, but until you raise the anchor and sail into the dark water, you aren't going anywhere. But what if a storm comes? Marcus asked. Storms always come, Thomas replied. You cannot avoid the storms. But a ship in the harbor eventually rots from the inside out. Marcus realized that the pain of staying the same was finally greater than the fear of the unknown. He didn't quit his job the next day. He wasn't reckless. Instead, he started waking up at 4 a.m. to bake bread, and he sold it at a local weekend market. It was exhausting. Sometimes he burned the bread. Sometimes nobody bought it. But slowly, over a year, his confidence grew. He wasn't waiting to figure out the whole bakery business. He was just figuring out the next loaf of bread. Eventually, Marcus transitioned to baking full-time. He isn't a millionaire. He works long hours. But he is alive. You see, confidence does not come before you start. Confidence is the reward you get after you take the first step into the unknown. If you are waiting to feel 100% ready before you make a change, you will be waiting for the rest of your life. What is something you want to do, but you are waiting to feel ready? What is your version of baking bread? Maybe it is learning a new language. Maybe it is ending a relationship that has been dead for years. Maybe it is going back to school. I want you to know that it is okay to do it scared. It is okay to do it while feeling completely unsure of yourself. Later in this episode, we are going to explore a fascinating scientific discovery about how our brains physically change when we walk into the unknown. We'll come back to that. But right now, I want to talk about something very sensitive. I want to talk about the fear of failure. Because when we say, I don't have my life figured out, what we are really secretly saying is, I am terrified of making a mistake and ruining my life. We treat life like a tightrope walk. We think one wrong step means we fall into an endless canyon and our life is over. But life is not a tightrope. Life is a playground. When a child is learning to walk, what happens? They stand up, they wobble, and they fall down. Do the parents look at the child and say, "Wow, this kid is a failure"? They are totally behind. They should have this walking thing figured out by now. No. Of course not. The parents cheer. They know that falling is a mandatory part of learning to walk. But somehow, as adults, we forget this. We expect ourselves to walk perfectly into a new career, a new relationship, or a new city without ever falling down. When we do fall, when we lose a job, or fail a test, or a relationship ends, we look in the mirror and say, "I am a failure." We need to change our definition of failure. In the world of science, a failed experiment is not a waste of time. If a scientist tries to create a new medicine and it doesn't work, the scientist doesn't cry and quit science. The scientist says, "Excellent. I now know one way that does not work. I have successfully gathered data. I am one step closer to the truth." What if you looked at your life like a scientist? If you try a career and you hate it, you didn't fail. You gathered data. You successfully learned what you don't want to do. If you date someone and it ends in a breakup, your life is not over. You gathered data about what kind of partner you actually need. Let me tell you about a beautiful philosophy from Japan. It is called kintsugi. When a ceramic bowl breaks in Japan, traditional artists do not throw it in the trash. And they do not try to glue it back together to make it look perfect and new again. Instead, they take the broken pieces, and they glue them back together using liquid gold. They highlight the cracks. They make the broken parts the most beautiful part of the bowl. The philosophy is that the bowl is actually more beautiful and more valuable because it has been broken. Its history, its damage, and its survival are what make it unique. We try so hard to keep our lives looking like a perfect, unbroken bowl. We want the perfect resume, the perfect relationship history, the perfect smooth path. But a perfect bowl has no story. The most interesting, kind, deep, and beautiful people you will ever meet in this world are not the people who had an easy, perfect life. The most beautiful people are the ones who have been broken. They are the ones who made mistakes, who took the wrong path, who failed, who hit rock bottom, and who slowly, painfully, put themselves back together with gold. If your life feels broken right now, if you feel like your plans have shattered into tiny pieces on the floor, I want you to imagine that liquid gold. You are not ruined. You are just beginning to become a masterpiece. Think about your favorite stories. Think about the books you read or the movies you watch. If the hero of the story knows exactly what to do from page 1, never struggles, never doubts themselves, and perfectly achieves their goal, is that a good story? No. That is a boring story. You would close the book after 10 pages. The stories we love, the stories that inspire us, are always about characters who are completely lost. They don't know who they are. They face impossible problems. They make terrible mistakes. They want to give up. And then, slowly, they find their way. You are the hero of your own story. The confusion you feel right now? The uncertainty? This is just the middle of the book. Do not judge your entire story by the chapter you are in right now. Every 2 to 3 minutes we try to introduce a new perspective here. So let's shift our perspective slightly. What if the idea of finding your purpose is actually a trap? Everywhere we look, people tell us, find your passion. Find your purpose. It sounds like purpose is a magical object hidden under a rock. Like you are walking down the street one day, and suddenly lightning strikes, and you say, "Ah, I am meant to be a marine biologist." For 99% of people, life does not work that way. Purpose is not something you find. Purpose is something you build. Let me share the story of Maria. Maria was an immigrant. She moved to a new country when she was 25, with hardly any money and very little English. For 20 years, she worked in jobs she didn't care about. She cleaned houses. She worked in factories. She was just trying to survive and raise her children. When Maria turned 45, her children had grown up and moved out. Maria sat in her quiet apartment and felt an overwhelming sense of emptiness. She looked back at her life and thought, I have wasted my time. I have no career. I have no purpose. I am too old to start now. She felt like she was entirely behind everyone else. One day, Maria decided to volunteer at a local community center just to get out of her silent apartment. She didn't have a grand plan. She just wanted something to do on Tuesday afternoons. At the center, she met other new immigrants who were struggling just like she had struggled 20 years ago. Maria started helping them. She helped them translate documents. She showed them where to buy cheap groceries. She sat with young mothers who were crying because they missed their home countries. Maria understood their pain perfectly. Without realizing it, Maria became the heart of the community center. A few years later, the center offered her a full-time job as a community outreach coordinator. At age 50, Maria finally found her purpose. But notice how it happened. It wasn't a lightning bolt. It wasn't a master plan. She didn't figure it out in her mind first. She just took one tiny, uncertain step. She showed up on a Tuesday. And that tiny step led to another, and another, until she had built a life of deep meaning. Maria's story proves something vital: you do not need a map for your life. You only need a compass. A map tells you exactly where you are going. It shows you every turn, every road, every destination. When you have a map, you expect certainty. And when a road is blocked, you panic. But a compass doesn't give you a destination. A compass only gives you a direction. If you are walking in a thick fog, a map is useless because you can't see the landmarks. But a compass will tell you, just take one more step north. When you don't have your life figured out, stop trying to draw a map. You don't need to know where you will be in 10 years. You don't even need to know where you will be in 1 year. You only need to know your direction right now. What is your compass? Your compass is made of your core values and your curiosities. Ask yourself simple questions. Do I want to move toward something creative, or something analytical? Do I want to move toward being around people, or working quietly alone? Do I want to try learning a new skill today, just for fun? If you follow your compass, taking one blind step at a time through the fog, you will eventually end up exactly where you are meant to be. Let's pause for a moment. How are you feeling right now? If you are walking, take a deep breath of the air around you. If you are lying in bed, feel the weight of the blankets. Notice that right here, right now, in this exact second, you are okay. The future does not exist yet. The future is just a ghost made of thoughts in your mind. The past is just a collection of memories. The only thing that is real is this exact second. Earlier, I promised to tell you about how the brain physically changes when we step into the unknown. It is time to close that loop. Neuroscientists have discovered something called neuroplasticity. For a long time, doctors believed that once you reached adulthood, your brain was fixed. It was set in concrete. They thought you couldn't change your fundamental pathways. But they were wrong. Your brain is plastic. It is flexible. It is constantly rewiring itself based on what you do. When you do the same comfortable things every day, when you follow the exact same routine, think the exact same thoughts, and stay in your comfort zone, your brain uses the same neural pathways. It is like driving down a smooth highway. It is easy, but the scenery never changes. But when you try something new, especially when you don't know what you are doing, and especially when you fail, your brain has to build new roads. This process physically changes the structure of your brain. It makes your brain stronger, younger, and more resilient. Confusion is actually the feeling of your brain growing. Let me repeat that, because it is so important. Confusion is the feeling of your brain growing. When you feel lost, when you are trying to figure things out and nothing makes sense, you are not failing. You are literally expanding your mind. You are building new roads in the forest of your brain. So the next time you feel that frustrating sense of "I don't know what I'm doing," smile. Tell yourself, my brain is growing today. Let's look at a story about this. Ben was 40 years old. He worked in IT. He was logical, practical, and highly organized. One day, for reasons he didn't quite understand, Ben bought a cheap keyboard and decided to learn how to play the piano. He didn't have a teacher. He just watched videos online. At first, it was agonizing. Ben's fingers felt like thick sausages. They wouldn't move where he wanted them to. He couldn't read the music. He sounded terrible. His dog actually left the room when he started playing. Ben was a smart guy. He was used to being an expert at his job. But sitting at the piano, he felt like a foolish child. His brain hated it. His amygdala told him to quit. This is embarrassing, his inner voice said. You are too old to learn this. Stick to what you know. But Ben kept practicing for just 20 minutes a day. He embraced the confusion. He let himself be terrible. 6 months later, Ben could play a simple, beautiful classical piece. It wasn't perfect, but it was music. And something amazing happened. The flexibility he gained in his brain from learning the piano started bleeding into the rest of his life. He became more creative at work. He became more patient with his friends. Because he had learned how to sit with the uncomfortable feeling of not knowing what he was doing. He had become comfortable with being a beginner. This brings us to a huge secret about adulthood. Are you ready for the secret? Everyone is a beginner. Nobody actually knows what they are doing. We are all just pretending. Think about the people you admire. Think about your parents, your bosses, famous leaders, or successful entrepreneurs. When you are a child, you think adults have a secret manual. You think they know the answers to everything. But then you become an adult, and you realize there is no manual. Your parents didn't know how to raise you perfectly. They were just figuring it out day by day, making mistakes, doing their best. The CEO of that massive company doesn't have a magic ball that predicts the future. They are just making educated guesses and hoping for the best. We are all improvising. Life is just jazz music. You listen to the notes around you, and you play what feels right in the moment. There is a brilliant philosopher named Alan Watts. He talked about how we misunderstand the point of life. He said that in society, we treat life like a journey. We think life is like traveling on a road to get to a destination. The goal, we think, is to get to the end of the journey as successfully as possible. But Alan Watts said life is not a journey. Life is musical. When you listen to a song, what is the goal? The goal is not to get to the end of the song as fast as possible. If that were true, the best musicians would be the ones who played their instruments as fast as they could and finished first. But that's ridiculous. The point of music is the dancing. The point of the song is the listening, the feeling, the melody in the moment. You are treating your life like you are trying to rush to the end of the song. You want to have the house, the career, the money, the perfect certainty, so you can finally sit back and say, okay, I made it to the end. But the end of the song is just silence. The joy of life is in the middle. The joy is in the figuring it out. The joy is in the messy, uncertain, confusing middle of the song. Dance while the music is playing. Do not wait for the music to end to start living. Let's bring this down to a practical level. If you are feeling completely overwhelmed by uncertainty right now, what can you actually do tomorrow morning to feel better? I want to give you a tool. It is called the 24-hour horizon. When we feel lost, our minds usually project 10 years into the future. We ask massive, unanswerable questions. Will I be lonely forever? Will I ever be financially free? What is my ultimate career? Those questions are too heavy. Your brain cannot process them. So, I want you to shorten your horizon. When the panic sets in, pull your vision back from 10 years, back from 5 years, back from next month. Focus only on the next 24 hours. Ask yourself, what is one small, positive thing I can control today? Maybe it is cleaning your room. A clean room gives you a tiny sense of order in a chaotic world. Maybe it is sending one email. Maybe it is going for a 20-minute walk. Maybe it is drinking a glass of water. There was a famous psychological study involving dogs that taught us about a concept called learned helplessness. When animals and humans feel that they have absolutely no control over their environment, they give up. They stop trying, even when an opportunity to escape appears. They learn to be helpless. When you focus on the massive uncertainty of the future, you feel helpless. You freeze. But when you make one tiny choice, like making your bed, or reading one page of a book, you break the cycle of learned helplessness. You send a signal to your brain, I am an active participant in my life. I have power. You don't need to build a whole house today. You just need to lay one brick perfectly. Let's think about a story of someone who built a beautiful life by simply laying one brick at a time. Let's invent a character inspired by thousands of true stories. Let's call him Julian. Julian is 65 years old. He is sitting on the porch of a beautiful little cottage near the ocean. He is drinking tea, watching the waves roll in. His life is peaceful. He is surrounded by friends, and he spends his days painting and volunteering at an animal shelter. If you looked at Julian right now, you would say, wow, he really figured life out. But let's rewind the tape. Let's look at Julian's life in reverse. At age 50, Julian was going through a terrible divorce. He lost half of everything he owned. He felt completely broken. At 40, he was fired from a management job he hated but needed for the money. At 30, he was trying to be a musician, living in a van, feeling like a massive failure because all his friends were buying houses. At 20, he dropped out of university because he had no idea what he wanted to study. Julian's life was a complete mess of uncertainties, failures, and fresh starts. He never had a grand plan. He just kept adapting. When the music career failed, he learned carpentry to pay the bills. When he got fired from management, he started a small furniture restoration business. The furniture business led him to meet his second partner, the love of his life. Every mistake he made, every wrong turn, was actually a necessary step to get him to that porch by the ocean. If you could go back in time and hand 30-year-old Julian a magical map that showed him exactly how to get to the cottage, he wouldn't have learned the lessons he needed to appreciate it. The struggle is the ingredient that makes the peace taste so sweet. We are moving into the final part of our conversation today. Let's slow down the pace. Take a deep breath with me. Inhale slowly, and let it out. I want to reconnect with Maya, the young woman from the beginning of our episode. The one sitting on her sofa, holding her sister's wedding invitation, feeling like she is failing at life. If Maya is listening to this right now, or if you are Maya, here is what I want you to know. Your sister's timeline is beautiful for your sister. Your friend's promotion is beautiful for your friend. But their timeline is not your timeline. You are not running a race against anyone else. You are running a race against no one. The track is empty. It is just you, walking through the landscape of your own life. There are no judges watching you. There is no scorekeeper. There is no prize at the end for the person who checked off the most boxes before they turned 30. The only person who is keeping score is you. I want you to try a thought experiment with me. Close your eyes for a moment. Unless you are driving, of course. Keep your eyes on the road. But if you are safe, close your eyes. Imagine you are 85 years old. You are sitting in a comfortable chair. Your hands are wrinkled. Your hair is silver. You have lived a long, full, complicated life. Imagine that the 85-year-old version of you gets out of the chair, walks across the room, and sits down right next to the current you. The 85-year-old you looks at you. They see the stress in your shoulders. They see the worry lines on your forehead. They know exactly what you are panicking about right now, because they lived through it. What do you think they would say to you? Do you think the 85-year-old you would say, I am so angry that you didn't have your career figured out by 25? Do you think they would say, "You really should have worried more about what strangers on the internet thought of you"? No. The 85-year-old you would put a warm hand on your shoulder. They would smile gently and say, "Please, stop worrying so much. It all works out in the end. Not exactly how you planned it, but it works out. Enjoy the confusion. Enjoy the youth. Enjoy the process of becoming. You are doing just fine. Listen to the wisdom of your future self. The pressure you feel is mostly an illusion. It is a ghost. You can choose to let it go. It is okay to be a masterpiece and a work in progress at the exact same time. It is okay to wake up tomorrow and say, "I have no idea what I am doing today, but I am going to try my best." That is not weakness. That is the ultimate courage. We are afraid of the unknown because we think the unknown is full of monsters. But the unknown is also full of miracles. The unknown is where your future best friend is waiting for you. The unknown is where your favorite food, which you haven't tasted yet, exists. The unknown is where the most beautiful moments of your life are hiding. If you knew everything that was going to happen to you, life would be incredibly boring. It would be a movie you have already watched a dozen times. The uncertainty is the spice of the movie. So, drop the map. Pick up the compass. Step into the fog. Let yourself be a beginner. Let yourself be messy. You are exactly where you need to be right now. You are not late. You are not behind. You are exactly on time for your own life. If today's conversation made you feel a little less alone, please like this video and subscribe to Daily English Podcast for more meaningful conversations about psychology, personal growth, and everyday life. And before you leave, I'd love to ask you one final question. If you could give one piece of advice to your younger self, what would it be? Share your thoughts in the comments. Someone out there may need to read your words today. Thank you so much for listening. Take care of yourself. Keep learning. Keep growing. And remember, you don't have to have your whole life figured out to take the next step. I'll see you in the next episode of Daily English Podcast.